Evening all. Okay, good evening on PlayChess.com and streaming also to Twitch. I'll just stop the echo as usual, forget about that echo. Okay, I've got an interesting game selection for you. I thought we could continue looking at the World Cup, which is being played in Norway, and some very, very interesting games. One very hot off the press from today may indeed be considered a brilliancy game, I believe. From the look of it, I think it's got potential to be celebrated a long time in the future. So Kamsky against Mamedyarov just played today. So let's have a look. Oh, hang on. Sorry, is the audio okay? Yeah. So e4 from Kamsky. And Mamedyarov plays the Sicilian defense. So very fighting response. Knight f3, e6, we see an open Sicilian. Knight takes, now knight c6. I think I've seen the label Bastrikov variation. Sounds a bit rude. Queen c7 now. Okay, now Kamsky plays an early f4 here. So this is interesting. He's blocked in his own bishop here, of course. So he's not moved these two guys. Where is he going to castle? Kingside or queenside? How should black react to this? I think one of the ideas with this early queen c7 might have been sometimes bishop. No, bishop b4, I think. Actually, a pin sometimes. So is that going to happen? We see actually d6, so the bishop's closed in. Bishop e3, knight f6. By the way, I hope the board's okay on Twitch. I should have just asked. I hope the board's okay. Okay, so knight f6. So Kamsky playing white for those coming just now. So queen f3. And okay, we see black playing a6. And now bishop d3. Bishop e7. And now both sides actually castle kingside. It looks as though, well, at the moment, black has got the brakes on the e5 square. All of this pointing to stop white playing, for e5, which would open up an attack on h7. And, rather crudely, you might think queen h3 would be useful in the future with e5 for that bishop just to justify itself on d3. But white plays a sort of prophylaxis move here, king h1, which is usefully stepping out of the dangers of this diagonal. Bishop d7. Now supporting a potential e5 with rook a1. So the rooks look quite nice here, and it looks as though e5 in the future is still an idea. He lets black play for b5 here, which black does, b5. So a3, so that any b4s, you don't want to lose control of e4 too much. Rook a b8. Now, is black going to generate some counterplay here with b4 or not? Okay, interestingly, knight takes c6, which seems to help black in a way. Points at the queen, so that pawn's pinned, and black will often look forward to d5 and knight e4 to blunt this bishop. So queen h3 anyway. So this is the kind of game I like. Because it's it's very, very clear direct attacking motive here, but is black the way to handle a flank attack, they say, is in the center. So black's going to try and arrange a central counter attack here with d5 against this kind of flank attack. But in chess it's much more complicated. The flank attack here has got a big prize associated with it, the king. So how does it go? Well, rook fd8, it seems entirely logical. Black wants to counter in the center. and try and blunt this bishop. This bishop can support, you know, a knight e4 as well, and you think that should be really quite good. So we see here actually now bishop d2. So he's getting out of the way of this rook. This rook's now supporting e5. And it's here black counters in the centre with d5. So it looks entirely logical to do this. In fact, bishop d2 looks a bit strange. It's a loose piece on d2 and there's this d file. So you can imagine, you know, on e5, knight e4, that this piece can be picked on tactically at some point. But this happens anyway. e5 is played anyway. And we see knight e4. I mean, it's already attacked on d2. And does White really want to lose his entire attack? If he takes on e4, well, he's actually just losing a piece anyway if he takes on e4 because of this loose bishop. For example, well, potentially losing a piece. Knight takes e4, d takes. Bishop takes, we just take here and then we just take on d2. Thanks very much. So, okay, but things get really quite interesting now. As I say, you know, it's a classical recipe to counter a flank attack with a central counter attack, and it seems perfectly implemented by black. This central counter attack, the bishop seems to be in the right place, the rook's in the right place, this bishop is in the wrong place, surely. Okay, so if you were white here, would you start panicking now? What would you play in this position? If I give you 20 seconds to think about it, what would you play here? And please move away from the notation tab so we can play these guess the move things. So what would you play as white here? Does it look as though positionally you're busted? I don't want to bias things, but okay. 20 seconds, think of a move, what would you play? Okay, any ideas what you play with white here? Okay, Pat MC, you say sacrifice the entire bishop with f5. Yes, that was what was played. A whole bishop sack is offered here. This bishop is just hanging. But of course it comes at a price. There's potentially f6. And then we're immediately highlighting h7 and e7. But black takes anyway. And in fact, is it f6? Sorry, is it f6? There's another question here. Just generally around the h7 square. So the bishop really wants to coordinate with the queen on h7. But also, I mean, is f6 actually effective enough in this position? If we try f6, which wasn't played, okay, what could black consider doing here? You know, possibly worst case scenario, black doesn't want to take here. I think he'll just get mated. That's a bad idea. But you know, maybe just g6. Possibly. So if we have this position, black look forward to maybe to knight e4 again. He's also attacking the rook here. Possibly, anyway. So, but we get a little twist here that actually white plays a different move. F takes e6. So he's offering now, of course, an exchange as well, but no, this looks mega dangerous. This queen takes h7. So forget taking the rook. It has to, h7 has to be shielded as top priority. And when playing through this game, I thought, how is this working now? because now black just blocks h7 with knight e4. And okay, I mean, it looks a little bit dangerous, maybe with this f-file and the queen, but with this bishop blocked, you'd think, well, where is the attack now? Well, anyway, e takes f7, and black didn't want to play king f8. I guess queen takes h7 looks really strong, threatening queen g8 and nothing else. So black played actually king h8. And here I imagined, you know, what's the big deal? And this is the amazing thing about chess and resourcefulness. This is a new trick I don't think I've seen before. How does the bishop help the queen? How? Interesting. These two simply want to help to get a mating thing on h7. But how do you do that? Here with this great big knight on e4, and this is a really fantastic concept which shocked me here. So white to play, and I hope if you're just please move away from the notation tab, go to the another tab like opening book. Fantastic concept. Can you see what white played in this position if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? Anyone? Okay, now there's been 3 suggestions which are all interesting to consider here on Play Chess. Let's take rook e3 first, as mentioned by St. Eustache. Rook e3, and there's another one, rook takes e4. Now, say rook e3. It's a bit slow, really. It doesn't really threaten too much, I think. I don't think there's a threatened queen sack because the king's always got g6 if nothing else. It's this bishop, it really needs liberation on this diagonal. If black's given a move here with rook e3, okay, maybe what could black do? Well, maybe one thing, you know, black can consider is queen takes e5. And where is the attack? So I don't think rook e3 can do the trick. Rook takes e4, I don't think is doing the trick either. D takes e4. And, you know, we don't want to give up the bishop, you know, just take, and where is the attack? And if we play knight takes e4, well, maybe this looks a bit dangerous, actually. This does look dangerous, but I believe black should have something here deep down intuitively in this position. The reason why I'm a bit cautious about this position, for example, queen takes e5, it looks as though knight g5, and we've got everything on h7 here. That looks pretty dangerous. So probably a safer bet is rook takes d3. It looks actually very dangerous. Get rid of this guy, and then maybe just taking here and taking here should be okay. Bishop up. That should be tenable. I mean, queen d7, bishop f8. Alright, so no, what we see here is something really drastic. So white has just sacrificed that bishop, you know, and the knight's come back. White plays now the shocking knight takes d5. So undermining the support of the huge knight, which I think is a brilliant idea. So what's going on here? If rook takes, then bishop takes e4, and it's very difficult to see how black defends h7. Now if h6, I guess queen f5. This pawn is also a very useful resource here, but queen f5, and it looks as though how does black actually defend this? It seems with some difficulty. I don't think it's defendable. So that's unpleasant. So in the game, actually bishop takes d5 was played. And now we see rook takes e4. So exchange sacrifice. So all white wants is this bishop and queen to coordinate on h7 with a ruthless determination expressed in this game so far that they are connecting for h7 for sure. And we get a similar scenario here if bishop takes. You know, if h6 queen f5, and I'm pretty sure if g6, well, we can just play bishop takes g6, and we'll, you know, that's not defendable. Surely it's just not defendable. The king can't escape from this. There's no escape here. The bishop's blocking in the king. So okay, we see black in this position, Mamedyarov playing actually g6. And apparently, when I noticed some kibitzing on chessgames.com earlier, I think this next move might actually have been an inaccuracy. White should apparently try and continue with something like rook e3. Okay, and there might be another attacking move, but what he played is actually rook ef4. Apparently there might be a way for black to get out of imminent danger here, just with queen takes e5. For example, bishop takes g6 with queen g7. So things get a bit hairy here. I'm not entirely sure what would happen after rook g4. Maybe just bishop e6. That looks pretty nasty actually. So I don't know if that was a defense that was missed here. Just queen takes e5. It looks interesting. But black played actually king g7. I think white's back in the driving seat now. We see though that black, I mean the logic behind king g7 is stopping of course bishop g6, but we see e6 now. So white is a bishop down, but it's dangerous, isn't it? This f8 is always a dangerous possibility. It's blocked now, rook f8, and now white wants to get onto the dark squares. Queen e3, expressing a desire for queen d4, which would pick up the bishop immediately with this check. So we see bishop c5 defending against that. Queen e1, which shows that the queen might be interested potentially in queen h4 to f6. That's a danger route. Or what else? We see bishop d6, rook h4, but now actually there's an idea that maybe accelerate with rook takes h7 if black's not careful. Let's see, or queen e3 to go on to h6. So we see bishop e7, and now an absolutely amazing move again. So this is again very much in the style of Mikhail Tal. Really, this is astonishing. What does white play here? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now, what would you do with white in this position? So 20 seconds starting from now. Anyone? Any ideas? Okay. Any ideas? Have I given you long enough? White to play. He doesn't move the rook. Okay, I'm going to tell you. He plays queen e3. He's offering the rook now just because the queen wants to be on the dark squares. It's not taken. Mamedyarov doesn't dare take on h4. So let's see. Let's try and see what would happen. Bishop takes h4. I guess, and I should have really done a detailed engine check on this game, but I guess queen d4 check. Where does the king go? I mean, it looks as though it's at least perpetual after check here, or even worse now. Check. Oh, hang on. Is there sound? Sorry. Sorry, king h8, h6. Ah, there's no sound. Oh, what's happened to sound? Oh dear, pardon me. I don't know what's happened to sound. Oh, if I press start again. Ah. Let's just restart that. Sorry about that. Ah. Yeah, on play chess, the sound's back. Okay, something happened there. So in this position, how does white finish off black? Is there a way for white to finish black off? It looks as though rook f4, I would say, is mega dangerous. I keep saying mega for some reason, because of rook h4. I'm not sure how black can defend this. Answers on the postcard. How does black defend that? Don't really know. Doesn't look too hot. If he has to give up the queen, he's going to end up losing the bishop as well. For example, you know, like this, we'd win the bishop, and we've got two passed pawns here. It's no good. So the rook isn't taken. So it's a fantastic game. After queen e3, the rook isn't taken. Black actually played h5, and we get this, you know, very, very dangerous queen d4 check. King h6, and now another stunner of a move, really tearing into black's king safety. Can you? I'll just show you. Oh, shall I? The final move of the game is surprising. Rook takes h5, check. What does this do? Rook takes h5. If takes, which wasn't played, black actually resigned after this, but if he did take, I imagine that one of the problems is rook f6 seems to stand out. If king g5, I think we've just got h4, checkmate, whoa. And if we take like this, well, then it's checkmate again. And what does that leave us then? King takes h5, doesn't look too clever to bring the king up. But we need a knockout blow here. So what's the knockout blow? I think queen g7 looks dangerous, but I think it's nice to run with checks. Maybe g4 check. If we try and run with checks with g4 check. No, it's pinned. No, we can't do that. We haven't got g4 check. What about just, I don't know, bishop. Black's got the control of h4. Okay, so Queen takes d5 is on here though. Queen takes d5. King h6. Does anyone see a clear win? If I give you 20 seconds, I'll have a look at it as well. So 20 seconds starting from now. Trying to work out a clear win. Yeah. I think there's something which is good enough, actually. Okay. I'll show you what I think. I think Pat MC, yeah, I think I agree with Pat MC. Oh, Nermin says bishop e2. I'm not sort of convinced bishop e2, you know, because king h6. What do we do here? I think we want that pressure on g6. So I think I prefer just intuitively just to take here and then to head back, you know, for that g6, using the bishop there for queen e4. I mean, this looks really strong. What is black going to do? Sacrifice another rook with rook g8 or something? It doesn't look too healthy. So I think there's also a possibility that queen g7 is threatening, you know, mating with queen g6, and that looks actually very, very powerful here. Unless there's some ridiculous counter queen sacrifice, I wouldn't have thought so with queen takes h2. I think this is pretty powerful stuff. Yeah, so basically, after rook takes h5, black actually resigned. Now I really think this is the most fascinating attacking game. What white played in a very paradoxical fashion, I thought, because it looked kind of ridiculous what he actually did. If you examine it, that black's central counterplay is being fed, literally fed, this loose bishop here for d5 and knight e4 deliberately. I mean, it's ingenious just to get in f5 and f takes. Of course, this is very dangerous to have a pawn on f7, but then the knight's cleared out of the way, bulldozed out of the way with you know, this knight takes d5. So we end up with this beautiful coordination of queen and bishop, made more effective by the pawn on f7. So an incredible game. I think, although this might have been a little slip up with rook f4 apparently, I think the bouncing like this is dangerous. So maybe to keep the attack going, rook e3, then e6 like in the game. But okay, a small inaccuracy, but otherwise the concepts are absolutely brilliant. So let's go on to another game. I hope you enjoyed that one. Let's go on to another. This is quite a sweet game. Well, a blunder, I think. So Caruana against Granda Zuniga. Giulio. So this was played today as well, actually. Okay, so e4, and we see this kind of Scotch game, I think. So e takes, knight f6, white takes on c6 and plays e5. This is all very queen e7, queen e2, knight d5. Very theoretical, this line. c4, knight b6. I think Kasparov reignited at some point interest in the Scotch game. Knight c3, now queen e6. And we see now queen e4. Okay, bishop b4, bishop d2, bishop b7, bishop d3. Now both sides castle queenside. That's fun, isn't it? Both sides castle queenside. Okay, So what happens here? White plays now. Sorry, pardon me. Black plays c5, attacking the queen. The queen just drops back. And for me, these positions have some uneasiness sometimes. Like this pawn looks a bit overstretched, isn't it? Just subject to undermining either with d6 or f6 or just, you know, frontal pressure. It looks as though this e5 is a concern in this variation. Is that the case here? Well, black tries to increase the frontal pressure. Rook he8, and it's supported. And now we see black choosing d6 to undermine it further. Okay, and white casually just plays a3 now. He's getting ready to reinforce it with this bishop. So this pawn's reinforced tactically. Bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3. And then now there's actually a big threat, it seems, of f5. And the pawn's going to get even more dangerous. So black tries to put the brakes on with g6. Only temporary, it seems. Rook hf1. And again, we're threatened with this f5. So Granda Zuniga plays knight a4. Threatening the horrible double pawns here. So the bishop just gets out of the way with bishop a5. And again, there's a kind of tactical defense going on here, that this rook is blasting to f7 if black tries to win e5. Black does play d takes e5 after f takes. Now, if queen takes e5, then I think queen takes is good for rook takes f7. So at no point, it seems at the moment, that the e5 pawn was going to be lost without compensation, because now actually the bishop and rook here are coordinating. So black didn't go for that, and it's because of the e5 pawn, it seems, that black's didn't last very long from this position at all. White might actually be threatening something like rook f6, just making use of that e5 pawn, possibly. Although there might be queen take. We've got this pin here, but there might be some other threats as well. That might be a potential useful one at some point. But really, I think the main point of black's next move must be surely to just say, look, there's a pin here against the pawn. I'm going to munch the pawn. Surely this is the point where black's going to take this pawn on e5. Say, take that. What do you do about your e5 pawn? What's this bishop doing over here? You know, sometimes Caruana's games, they look a bit weird, you know, where his pieces are. I mean, what's the bishop doing on a5? Why is there a weak pawn on e5? But here, you know, tactics are very, very important in this position. Can you guess what white played here if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? It's the final move of the game. So white to play and win. Sorry about the errors. So I was trying to kind of get rid of them. So what does white play here? Any ideas? Okay, white just makes use of, believe it or not, the en passant. Giving up, it seems, a whole bishop, but black can't do this. Let's see. Queen takes e2. Bishop takes, and I guess we don't want to take here because then there's bishop takes and we're on this knight. We want to take this, but then, you know, just rook takes and then f7, and this pawn is queening or winning lots of material with, you know, rook e8 is forced. We win the rook, we're the exchange up. Black might as well resign that. So it was a simple e takes f6, which wasn't expected. saves the pawn yet again, but actually wins the game as well for white. So an interesting game there, where you think e5 is a weak pawn from the opening, but it needs to be tactically proven, and it wasn't. In fact, it was proven how dangerous it is for black to play a move like f5. Okay, so let's go on to another game. Now this is a game which actually I'm not entirely sure. Okay, let's have a look. This has a cute finish that I want to show you. So Boris Gelfand has been a brilliant player in recent months, proving he was a fantastically qualified candidate to play Vichy Anand actually last year, because he's been doing so well in some tournaments. A Town Memorial, wasn't it? That he won. So okay, so d4 from Boris against someone called Alexander Moiseenko on the 17th of August, so 3 days ago. So we see knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, bishop b4. So this is a hybrid kind of Nimzo Indian Queen's Gambit declined type thing going on here. Bishop g5, h6, and Boris gives up voluntarily in this position his dark square bishop. There's a very specific idea here that Queen a4 check forces knight c6. Oh, the bishop is lost, and with this pawn is blocked in, and this kind of Shigorian style thing with the knight on c6 isn't always that brilliant. For a start, it can be like a target on the c file later, the knight e5, maybe, you know, bishop b5 later, the e5 square, that sort of thing. Black castles, bishop e2 for a moment, d takes c4, and this isn't taken actually. White just castles, bishop d6, now it's taken with the queen takes c4, and it does look, what is very pleasant here for white is this c file and knight b5. You could imagine a lot of pressure on the c file coming up. e5, this looks logical to liberate this bishop and to make use of the knight on c6. But the c file, let's see, d5, knight d8, rook ac1, the c file is painful, knight d5 is coming up. There's a clear and imminent danger here. Surely white has good control over the e4 square against e4, so queen e7 and just knight b5. Black looks to be grovelling here because of this c file. He has to dynamically think about giving up c7 now, so bishop f5. The dynamic way just runs into a pin, surely. So knight takes c7, we just go into that pin, and so what? No, the point here, white can get a small but clear advantage. Forget c7, white just takes off that dark square bishop. So c takes d6, it looks as though the pawn's rescued from the c file. But is it here that white still has the advantage? Knight d2. Okay, f6, and we see queen c7. The infiltration is annoying. Okay, and the queen's come off, so that's the end of black's fun. With any idea of any attack is gone now, and white still owns that c file. So even though the c pawn's been taken off it, white owns the c file, and rook c3 stamps the authority that the rooks are simply going to double and come to c7 soon. So rook c8, trying to get rid of one pair of rooks. White obliges, rook takes c8, and then puts the rook c1 again. Bishop d7. Now, with that pair of rooks coming off, is white still in a great way? Well, d6 is still a target now, and it's attacked knight e4, forcing defensive move knight f7. And now the defender is attacked, and this looks rather unfortunate for black, this next move. Sorry, how is the defender attacked? It's unfortunate that these pawns are all on dark squares. Look at these light squares. Look at the light squares. Can you see what white plays in this position to further the attack on d6? So if I give you 20 seconds starting from now, white play. What does white play in this position? By the way, it's not Diet Coke. I don't want the caffeine. Well, I think it's something probably equally as bad. Fanta Zero. Still got probably killer sweeteners in it. Anyway, so bishop h5, and you know black cannot evict this bishop, so it's threatening to take and then take here. Well, take with a knight. So bishop e8, and that allows a weakness of the last move. It's all falling to bits, isn't it? c8 is now on the cards. Rook c8, pinning the bishop. Now threatening something really horrible again, like bishop takes, and then knight takes d6. So king h7, forcibly losing material. That's all fallen to bits just from this c-file infiltration. Rook takes e8, winning 2 pieces for the rook. So 2 pieces for the rook. And still d6 is a problem, but not at the moment because of the back row mate threat. But Boris Gelfand spots this and makes way for his king with g4, giving the king an escape route. So still, the question is posed about d6. So rook c2, d6 is offered for b2, bishop e6. Now, very interesting move here, bishop e6. It vacates f7 for the knight, and the knight can support the pawn like this. So this is nice coordination. Rook takes a2, knight f7. So we have now d6, d7. The pawn's going to land. Rook d2. But there's a really unexpected little twist here. d6. The king tries to come to the rescue tactically with king g6. Putting pressure on f7, and after e4, black might have been very optimistic. Well, I doubt it. I don't know. Of a blunder, a tiredness blunder. He plays a5. I don't know if black had consigned himself to losing this or some sort of swindle, but it just doesn't exist. There isn't a swindle here. This pawn is queening. Bishop d5 here. So why is this winning? Why can't black play rook takes d5? Black actually resigned. He didn't play rook takes d5. So let's have a look. So there's no way of stopping the pawn except for rook takes d5 to try and take on f7. Yeah? So if this happens, then we're stopping the pawn, and thanks very much. We're stopping the pawn, end of game. Yeah? But the sweet thing about this is here, actually. Can you see what white plays in this position? And remember, a knight on the rim is dim. Oh dear. So, but in this position, what would you play with white if I gave you 20 seconds, starting from now? Okay, yeah, in this position, e takes d5 appears to lose, but knight h8 check appears to win. driving the king away from any escape, any blockade. So no time for the king. Say, king g5, we just take it out, we're queening, and there's nothing black can do. So black didn't bother, he just resigned here anyway after bishop d5. But I thought that was a neat game. The domination of the c-file led to winning material, led to this d pawn. From the opening, it was very interesting that the c-file was a kind of liability for black straight from the opening. So from that paradoxical giving up the dark square bishop to forcing knight c6, the whole thing flows very logically, the whole game for white. Okay, so let's have a look at another game. So I thought this was a neat attacking game here, a very aggressive game from both sides. This is Yuri Kryvchko against Vasily Ivanchuk. So it was played yesterday. So e4, and Ivanchuk plays the Sicilian. Knight f3, Ivanchuk plays d6. So we get this Sicilian defense. Knight c6, bishop g5. e6, queen d2. a6. White castle's queenside. Bishop d7, f4. Okay, Ivanchuk now plays b5, and this looks quite a dangerous line actually. Black's deliberately not moved his bishop. It looks very, very theoretical. White plays now bishop takes f6. And actually you see g takes f6. Now knight takes c6, bishop takes c6. Bishop d3. Okay, has Ivanchuk got any kind of attacking attention on the queen side here? It seems as though white doesn't mind b4. So the question here, should white really mind b4? Well, it is played, knight e2. And you might think, well, what if queen a5? Well, actually queen a5 isn't played. Instead queen b6, which might be more accurate in some way. King b1, h5, as though the bishop's interested in this diagonal. Black has got the dark square bishop trump card here, so that seems to be an interesting way to make use of it. f5, and now bishop h6, attacking the queen. Queen e1. e5. And it looks as though, well, has white got any clear attacking intention here? Is this pawn a liability at some point to something like this? Or is that not on the cards? Well, let's see what happened. Knight g3, h4. And there's invitation for knight h4. I don't think it does much. Sorry, knight h5. Maybe just king... No, not king e7 here, knight f6. Maybe just bishop g5 is the move. Just protecting f6, protecting h4. So this queen is not doing much, and the knight's asked to move. Maybe this is okay for black. So actually, we see knight f1, and it looks as though here that black's got a comfortable position. He plays actually king e7. So he's offering now the h4 pawn like this. Can it actually be taken here? Let's have a quick look. White actually played bishop c4. If queen takes h4, where is the conversation? What would you play with black in this position? Maybe it's just like a, just for time, black maybe can just carry on with the attack unless there's something concrete here. Is it something concrete, or black just carries on with the attack? Anyway, the pawn is ignored actually after king e7. White plays bishop c4. He's more interested in trying to keep control of d5 and have his own dynamism. This queen's actually protecting that. That's not a problem. So queen c5 though, and this is ridiculous now. The bishop goes back to d3. Is white just marking out time in this position already? If the bishop goes to b3, it looks rather terrible actually, because of a5 than a4. So the bishop just goes back to d3. So it's like white's without a plan here. And this is why I find this particular game interesting, that Ivanchuk just, he just squeezes white now with a5, now a4, and white's kind of helpless here. Look at this lovely, dark squared bishop. What has white got here? Just the use of the c4 square for a moment. Knight c4. And it might be the case, I don't know, at some point that queen h4 is on, but bishop f4 protects h4 and ties down the rook as well to h2. So queen f1 and now b3, and this is a fantastic attacking resource to get a pawn to b3 here. C takes, a takes, a3, and now the pressure can really start intensifying. Rook a4. Okay, so the bishop and queen are kind of frozen defending c4 here. White tries g3. This looks like a very desperate and pathetic move to have to play. But let's see, what can white actually play in this position? If he moves the knight, where can he move the knight, in fact? Knight d2? Maybe black just, takes on d2 here, and then takes on e4. He's got this pressure on e4. That looks not very nice. So g3 looks like a desperate move in a desperate situation. And Ivanchuk now plays hg, hg. He takes a pair of rooks off. And he doesn't bother now moving his bishop. In fact, it probably might be a very bad idea to move the bishop, or not. Maybe black's doing fine anyway. He actually just plays rook takes c4. And this would be really gorgeous for black if bishop takes c4 was played here. It wasn't, but if takes, we've got this terrible threat of bishop takes e4 check, winning the queen, and this looks nasty. This looks absolutely nasty, this bishop e4 here. So that wasn't played. Instead we see g takes f4. Okay, so where is black's attack? We see rook c2, and it's the b2 pawn which is terrible now, potentially. Maybe just queen d4 trying to mate, potentially. So that looks like a major threat on the cards here. Now king a1 at least provides a resource, rook b1 potentially to queen d4. But so actually rook f2, sorry, queen d4 isn't even on because the bishop takes c2 anyway. That's not even on. Pardon me. What is the actual threat? Okay, let's just check that. If queen d4, bishop takes c2, and we're attacking the queen. But so black played actually rook f2. But now here it seems queen d4 is threatening just to mate white with queen b2. And we get a variation on that now. After f takes e5, queen takes e5, threatening mate in 1. Rook b1. Now rook d2 attacking the bishop. Queen f1. Queen d4, very grovelly for white. Queen c1. So counter-attacking here. But Ivanchuk just takes on d3 after queen takes c6. He doesn't fall into, I don't know if this is again optimism by white. Is he expecting Ivanchuk to blunder here? With this kind of silly move. Queen takes b1 doesn't work because there's always rook c1. But no, Ivanchuk doesn't do that. He just plays can you see what black plays in this position? So black to play, if I give you 20 seconds starting from now, what does black play in this position? Actually, this might not be the key move. It's not the move of great interest. Sorry, hold that thought. I'll give you the next move is rook d1. It's the move of greater interest is after rook c1, which appears for a moment to hold. Now the final move here, sorry, the final move in this position, can you see what black plays here? So this is the final move of the game now coming up. So 20 seconds starting from now. Ivanchuk to play. Okay, well done to a couple of you on Play Chess. Yeah, and one on stream. Ivanchuk, I'm about to say it now. Come on, speak. Queen c2. Yeah, horrible. So this pawn is really winning now because, well, we've got the back row mating because the pawn, you know, king's trapped. What else is there to say here? Queen takes. We just this is winning. There's no defense of the rook. The checks, run through the checks, maybe just king f8. I don't think there's any checks after this. Where are the checks? They're ending. So queen c2 is crush, end of game. So I thought that was quite impressive because white wasn't given much counterplay for the whole game. He seemed to have no plan at all and was kind of squashed on the queen side. It was made to look quite easy, but it's amazing. But the dynamic aspects of like leaving the h4 pawn hanging at different points is interesting. So I think just one more game is I'd like to show you this week. So one more game. This is from the 19th, so this is yesterday. So Eljanov against Karjakin. I actually amusingly call him Karjakin on YouTube, Karjakin. So Eljanov 2702 against Karjakin 2772. So knight f3 and Karjakin plays knight f6. c4 b6. g3 c5. Looks okay for both sides so far. It looks fairly standard. So black's doing two fianchettos here, and white breaks in the center. C takes. Now white preserves the bishop here. It doesn't want to play this necessarily. He plays queen takes d4. So d6, and now b3, and white wants to fianchetto this bishop. So this is fianchetto territory. Everyone wants to fianchetto both bishops in this game. So knight bd7, bishop b2, mission achieved. So black castles, rook fd1. And now with that queen as a target, you might think there's a useful discovery on the queen from this bishop. So knight e4. There's no queen sack or anything here. It doesn't end like that. The queen just moves here to e3. Now, this is interesting because it looks as though black doesn't necessarily want to give up his dark square bishop because there'll be weaknesses on the dark squares after, surely. But this is what happens. Knight takes c3, bishop takes c3. And Karjakin, you know, who are we to argue? You know, his FIDE rating's 2772. How could he misjudge this? How? To give up his dark square bishop. Only in club games we get mated, surely. If someone of that rating plays this, the king safety is not a problem, is it? Okay, let's see. Queen c7, queen e3. And this looks like crude stuff that the queen just wants to go to h6. And the knight just wants to go to g5 to try and get a mate on h7. This looks quite primitive. Surely not. Knight f6. Well, there's a bit of sophistication already, though, built in. That if we played queen h6, then surely black might have actually knight g4, for example, evicting that queen. So white in this position plays rook d4. So he's actually with rook d4, stopping knight g4s. And also it's handy anyway, isn't it? Queen h6, we can play rook h4 and knight g5. So Karjakin now plays h5, giving his knight g4, again protected by the pawn. But here the queen installs herself anyway, not caring now about knight g4. This doesn't look like a good idea at all to play knight g4 in this position anymore. If knight g4, surely white can just snap that off and then play knight g5. And how does black actually defend against this crudeness? It's not possible, surely. So knight g4 is ruled out, I think. So black played queen c5. And the other rook just comes in to support the rook on d4. Rook a d8. And this might have been a blunder actually, rook a d8. In fact, if we just rewind just for a moment, a kind of weakness of the last move here is this bishop is loose here. So note that bishop's loose. Still loose. And black now plays rook a d8. So this bishop's still loose. Okay. White now plays knight g5, attacking the bishop. And black, okay, let's see what black is threatened with in this position. Okay, what is actually black threatened with? Black played in the game e5. Now, if he plays bishop takes g2, what can white consider here apart from the ordinary capture? White might consider knight e6 just on g7 here, but I don't think this really does anything that drastic, or does it? I think there's nothing really bad about this because the knight's just coming to h7, surely. So that's not a big deal. I just thought I'd point that out. Unless anyone wants to believe that is. I don't think knight e6 is a big deal. But it's interesting why black played this next move. So Karjakin here, he didn't take on g2. It seems as though bishop takes g2 should be playable, unless I'm missing something big time. Bishop takes g2 seems playable. If does anyone have any objection to bishop takes g2 before we go on? If I gave you 20 seconds here, is there any major objection here? I'm not sure. Actually, there might be, you know, rook f. I've just seen it. Rook f4, Pat MC, yeah, rook f4, just going in for that h7 again with rook f6. What do we play to rook f4? This is daylight robbery of the king. What do we do to rook f4 here? Blimey. Black... Isn't this lost? Isn't this lost? Does black have to give up the queen here? Does everyone agree that black might actually be completely lost here? This might actually be the reason why bishop takes g2 wasn't played. If I give you 20 seconds to have a look at this position, shall we just verify? Actually, I haven't really engine checked any games, I assure you, but this looks like an interesting resource. You know, if we try and escape, we'll just get mated on f7 instead of h7. I don't see what black does here. Interesting. So black in the game, maybe Karjakin was a bit worried about this. So remember, this loose bishop is like a double attack. Black played e5, and I don't know. There's a very harsh brutality about this whole game. White now just plays bishop takes b7, offering a full exchange sack. Because after e takes d4, white to play in this position. Can you see what white played now? And it's the final move of the game. So white to play. What does white play here? If I give you 20 seconds now. Yeah, bishop d5 is now threatening queen takes g6 and then queen f6. What does black do here? If rook e8, bishop f7 is mate. Black had to resign here, it seems. He did resign. It just seems a very, very unfortunate game. I can only trace back black's disaster in this game. I mean, he's 2-7-7-2 and he was hacked. I think it must have been, perhaps it was one of the rapid playoffs. Sorry, that might explain it. It was probably one of the rapid playoffs. I mean, if you go back, I mean, white's 27-02 as well. But if you go back, you know, giving up the dark squared bishop was really punished here. I mean, it was such a simple plan. I mean, it's unbelievably simple to put the queen, but it was with subtlety. The difference maybe between us Patzers and the Super GM here is rook d4, just delaying a bit queen h6, just to rule out knight g4. But still, the basic idea is queen h6 and knight g5. And the horrible point about this bishop takes g2, I mean, if this really is the case, this is quite an amazing game, actually. It's much more than I'd imagined. Okay, so I think that's about an hour, and I think that was an interesting game selection. I hope you got something from it. So maybe, okay, thanks very much. See you next week. Thanks so much. I'll put it on YouTube if you've got any questions or comments there. Okay. YouTube.com/Kingscrusher. So just check for my videos on YouTube.com Kingscrusher as well. Okay. Thanks very much.